G'day everyone, welcome to On The Wire. I'm Warren Davies, the Unbreakable Farmer. I have a very special guest tonight. He's a good mate of mine, we've been mates for years. His name's Jeff Wright. He's got a fantastic story from being in the military to the Queensland Police Force, and then a little bit of adversity's entered his life, but he's taken that on bull by the horns, and he's kicking goals at the moment. So Jeff, welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Wazza. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you. Unfortunately, I don't have a title like, the ideas guy or, the Unbreakable Farmer or something like that. But I'll just go with Jeff, the bald guy. How about that?
Yeah, that's good. The bald guy. You want to get a website. The bald guy.
Yeah. It'll be a top seller.
Well, as I said, thanks for joining me. So we'll hop straight into it, and we'll just start with a little bit of your story. As I said, obviously a mate, you grew up in Kyabram, and then you ventured out into the big wide world. So just give us a little bit of your background and what you've done in your life and how it's led up to today.
Well, yeah, you're right. I spent my youth in and around the Golden Valley, Stanhope, Gagari, Kyabram, and went to a couple of schools and decided to join the Army at the age of 17. So for me, that was a big call, but looking back in hindsight, I wasn't as scared as I probably should have been, but found out 20 years later that was probably the best thing I could have done. So the journey through the Army was something that I'll never forget for many reasons. The most important one is the amount of friends that I still have from those days. Even today, I'm around and associate with boys that I joined with back in the mid-'80s, and even guys that I only met just before I discharged out of the Army. So it's a great place to have lifelong friends, and it allowed me to grow up under the tutelage of some really impressive humans. When I first started at 17, everything was in front of me. I didn't know anything. I was a skinny little kid, and we were being taught the ropes by some very hard nut men. They were much older than us, and a lot of them were Vietnam veterans. So to have the opportunity to be trained by blokes like that, for me was really an honour. I knew back then that it was special to have those guys telling us how things were, and even to the point where you had to earn your spot before you could go anywhere. So little things that you had to prove yourself for allowed you to not stand up and eat your pie and your Coke at Smoko. You were invited to sit down beside them at the table. But until you earned the right by proving yourself to these guys, I wouldn't let you do that. So it was a great journey. I loved that time. Got involved in some fantastic things around the country. Also went overseas with the Army, and funnily enough, that was back in '99, and seems like yesterday, but it is getting close to the 20-year reunion coming up. So those guys that I went overseas with are still very much involved with what I do, and blokes that I didn't go overseas with that also went overseas in different theatres and different places. We all congregate together still and hang out. So, yep, I've still got a great attachment to the Army, but given the topic that you want to discuss, mainly about your resilience and your perseverance and determination, the Army taught me a lot of that. I was lucky enough to progress through the ranks fairly quickly, and ended up finishing my time as a warrant officer. That was a proud moment to be promoted from sergeant to warrant officer. It was an achievement. I was given an appointment as a company sergeant major, and really thought that, you know what, I'd done everything in front of me, and it was time to look for a new challenge.
So people that don't know the military very well, that rank is fairly high. You're in charge of a fair few people, or there's a lot of people underneath you.
Yeah, it's as high up as you can go, bar one more position as a person who starts as a soldier, where officers start as a lieutenant and go up through the ranks. It's kind of it's someone that's at least probably got somewhere in the order of 15 years to 20 years experience. It takes time to get there, and not everyone achieves it. A lot of people might only make corporal or sergeant. So I was lucky enough to get there, and really enjoyed my time, and thought that what I achieved in the Army was something that I was really proud of. I know my family were, and it's not something that I hang my hat on anymore. I've moved well past that, but certainly for that period of time in my life, it was something I was very proud of. And I'm still proud of anything to do with the military. The boys that are in it now, they're in a whole different army to me, and they're dealing with completely different issues now than what I was. So, the Army is, not long been celebrating its 100 years, and I'm proud to say that I gave them 20 years of my life during that 100-year period. So I loved it, and was able to, get some lifelong skills out of that that I still use today. So it was a great time.
We'll touch on that as we progress through your story, because obviously me knowing your story, I know that there's some skills that have played a part in your recent life that you would have developed in the Army. Just a quick question: that first day that you rocked up, and where did you do your training, at Kapooka, or where did you do it?
Yeah.
That first day, that skinny kid, I can still remember the day that you told us all that you were joining the Army. I can clearly remember that day, and you were only a skinny kid. So just what was that first day like when you rocked up and you were doing your basic training?
We got off the bus because we all enlisted in Melbourne, and we were driven to Wagga at Kapooka there, and we got off the bus, and the bloke got on and asked us if we had any weapons and to declare any drugs that we had, so whether they be prescription or illegal. A couple of boys brought out these, big Bowie knives and things like that. They were all confiscated, and then we got pulled off the bus, and we had to carry our suitcases to our barracks, and we had to march in step. We'd never ever done that before, and I remember the guys that were a bit unco being yelled at in a very aggressive manner by a guy who I now know was a corporal, and we learned to realise that a corporal had all the power at Kapooka, and he was to be feared, but ultimately we learned to respect them. So it was a scary period. I could march in step, so I didn't get yelled at, and I was strong enough, even though I was skinny, to carry that really heavy suitcase all the way to the barracks. It seemed like a kilometre, but it probably was only 300 or 400 metres, to be honest. But a great day, but nonetheless scary, but I was super excited to get going.
Yeah. So from the Army, obviously you said you were there for 20 years. Once you discharged out of the Army, where did you head then?
Yeah, I left the Army, went on long service leave, and was hoping that my application for the Queensland Police was going to be accepted. It was a bit of a punt, but I was confident in what I did, how I interviewed, and the skills that I had to offer. So I kind of thought that I'd get the job or get offered to be recruited. But I needed a challenge, was I? Leaving the Army and the position I was in of all this responsibility and all of this skills that I had to offer, I needed another challenge, and I was ready to be challenged by a completely different set of circumstances. And to say I enjoyed the police was an understatement. I loved the recruit training. I was actually the squad leader, and I was able to teach them drill because I knew drill better than the instructors. So they took our skills and allowed us to help the guys who couldn't march and couldn't do any drill, allowed me to take control of that and bring them up to scratch. So it was a proud moment graduating. Again, I was a squad leader, and I had to run the guys around the parade ground before we got our graduation and our badges presented. But it was just recognition of my previous military history of what I could offer the police, and I started with a bang and walked into my first station in the city here in Townsville, and it wasn't long before a great mate of mine, who's a sergeant, took over, and he was actually at the academy, who knew me and understood my history and took advantage of my skill set and plugged me in really quickly to be a field training officer, which meant that I trained people straight out of the academy to teach them the real job of policing rather than what the book says at the academy. So I really loved passing on my skills to young guys that were green straight out of the academy, because it was straight up my alley from my teaching and all the work that I used to do in the army. So had some great times in the police. Again, got some great friends still from there. Was exposed to some really rotten stuff, which people don't recognise enough. Saw some really untidy things as far as people's worst days of their lives and tragedies that have bestowed them, having to deal with those situations, being hated everywhere you go. Didn't matter if you're giving someone a ticket for rolling through a red light or dealing with a traffic accident fatality. We covered all the bases, but typically people didn't like to see us. So it changed the way I was because of the way we were treated because of the job. And I don't begrudge how we were treated. That's just part of the job. But the mateship and the teamwork that you have keeps everything in perspective. And Aussies are great at black humour. And you can go to a fatality with 4 teenagers that didn't make it out. You tried your best, but they all tragically found their end on the side of the road. But to get past that, you lean on your mates and your friends to make sense of that and move on as quickly as you can, because it can really get to you and affect how you do your job and what happens at home and your family. So there was a lot.
That's one of the things that I speak about, like when I talk, is about communication, and that's one of those things. I suppose you have to communicate with the peers that are around you in a situation like that. Otherwise, I could imagine it would be pretty hard to cope with, especially like in that. What you just described then, that'd be a terrible situation to be in. So you need to be able to communicate and as you said, lean on the people that are around you to try and help you through and to make sense of it.
Yeah, it was a great period. There was a lot of bad things, but you kind of can push them to the side. You take the positives out of it, the camaraderie, which was something that I was attuned to because of that military time that I spent. So it was a great sit down and calm down from being in the military for so long. It was a great stepping stone, and I really liked the way that allowed me to kind of break away from the green machine and take on a new set of skills and problems and have a crack at being as good as I could be at that job. So,
do you find that, like with blokes that you know that are exiting out of the military, if they don't take that step, that it's like the two worlds are different, like normal world and army world are two different things?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I do know a lot of people that do let themselves be driven in the wrong direction because they do leave the military. They can't find something that takes that gap that they now have in their life. And if they don't find the right activity or group of people or job, they can struggle and roll around with a problem for a while, especially guys that have been overseas and and have seen and been involved in some pretty serious stuff, they struggle to assimilate back. So it's about recognising what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and finding the right people. I'll tell you a little bit more about my accident in a minute, and those people are absolutely vital for me, to keep me moving in the right direction, mate. So you can't do it on your own. That's my message, mate.
Yeah. And I think that's a common theme of the communication and the mateship that developed in the army that you've been able to then carry through to the police and then on with the rest of your life. So once the police, what after then, mate? You finished up there. I think you were in that for 5 years or something, and then you finished up.
Yeah.
How did you come about leaving, and what was the next chapter in your journey?
Really weird, mate. Went from the army, police, and I built a home for myself in 2007. Won a couple of awards because I was heavily involved in the design. Then a year later, I was building an investment home with the same company. So I got to know those guys really well. They became my friends, and they offered me a job, which is really weird because who'd employ an ex-copper or ex-army guy to design homes and sell them? So it was just because they knew me and they knew my personality, and they decided to give me a crack, and I really enjoyed that. It was like a whole new world because the people I met through that job were nice to me, and they were happy to see me, and that was a big departure from the police where everyone didn't want to see you and didn't want to be nice. So I really was, I thought I was being punked when I first started because all these people were coming in and being nice to me, and I was looking for cameras to see if they could see my reaction because it really felt weird, mate.
Yeah.
But I grew to love it, and I loved providing solutions for people to get exactly what they wanted out of their home, given their budget, and designing it so it met their lifestyle. And I really sunk my teeth, really heavily into that, and worked really, really hard. That progressed into, I met a local land developer, and he was told to come and have a chat to me because of my design skills, and he asked me to design something for him and his family. And fast forward as that happened, we became mates, and he offered me a job to work for him and redesign and relook at his sales department. So
it's just
that's
it's amazing. Like, it's amazing journey how you've changed. Like you're like a chameleon. Like, basically, like, obviously the army and the police force were similar, but then moving into something different. I suppose that's one of the lines or the topics that I'm trying to get out with On the Wire as well, is about being able to embrace change in your life and run with it. And you've done that. So where do you reckon these skills, these design skills come from? Was it from the graphics room at Kai High, or where did it come from, mate?
The only thing I can remember from graphics is Dean Horsfield got cut when someone stabbed him with one of those knives. So, no, it wasn't there, mate. I had a real interest in real estate. I started a database because I bought a home before I built this custom home for myself.
Yeah.
I bought a home, and I really loved keeping an eye on what homes sold for in certain suburbs. And I started a database, keep an eye on when they sold, how long they're on the market for, what price they sold for, what they were listed for. And I took a lot of interest in the look of homes and how they were laid out, set out, and it just progressed, mate. So it's just a personal interest that got me into it. And when I got the chance, I just had a crack. But like a lot of these things I've done, mate, I was never ever probably thinking I was going to be the best. But once you get a go and you get a look in, you pull your pants up and you go for it.
Yeah.
You really dig in and you keep going until someone stops you and moves you in another direction, or you think you've got it covered. So, but asking questions and being nosy and yearning for more information and wanting to learn and taking the time to read things that are specific to the area you're in helped me jump over people that were, just lazy at what they did, and they wouldn't put the effort in, but they expected things to happen for them. So if you want things to change and you want to scale the ladder, the only person who can do that is you, with a little bit of help from your friends. So it's about taking the time.
And that's been a common theme through everything that you've done, really. But do you think that discipline to work hard was instilled growing up on the farm, or was it when you went into the army? Was that what was instilled in you to drive you and have that discipline to try and achieve? Was that? Do you think that's where it come from?
It wasn't a farm, mate. I'd only do tractor work, mate. I was pretty precious. So if it was tractor work, I'd do it all day. But if it was manual labour, I'd leave that to Dad. So yeah. Now the army gets you to look at something and create a plan and a how do you go from here to here and problem solve. Problem solving is something that's lacking in a lot of people these days, in my view. And being able to problem solve is something that I love doing, and to do it quickly helps you, look like you're really, on the ball, and people go, wow, that was really cool. But to you, it was nothing because you just quickly assessed it, made your decision, and you executed what needed to be dealt with. So it was the military for sure. Really got to show my wares on that in the police to make quick decisions in some pretty funny and dangerous situations was great. I loved it. It was an adrenaline rush. I wanted more of it. I wanted to be exposed to as much as I could, and never shied away from getting really digging in and having a real crack at a couple of nasty situations. So it was that thing that I left behind in the army, the adrenaline pump and being involved in some special moments as far as policing goes was addictive, and I wanted more all the time.
Yeah. So I suppose that leads us, you're in the building industry now, and that leads us to the more recent past. Give us a rundown of what's happened in the last 18 months, I suppose. So we'll start that story, because that's probably why I've got you on tonight. And it's not to relive nasty things, but it's to really prove that if you put your mind to it and you, as you say, dig in and have a crack, you can overcome some fairly massive obstacles, which you've done, which you're inspiring me, mate. So just give everyone that's watching a bit of a rundown of 18 months ago and where this part of your journey that you're in now, where that started.
Yeah, well, I guess all of the past history, particularly the army and the police, probably allowed me to be where I'm now. I've been handed a real challenge and a task. I've got to be methodical and organised with what I do, because 18 months ago, I was having a 2-day break from my job. That job I was in was a sales manager position. I was working long hours, working weekends, and getting rewarded for it. I'm involved with a great company and had great people around me, but the only way I could unwind from that and re-energise was to get on my Harley and get away. And I did that regularly, and that allowed me to not think about work and just recharge for the next week or two. So I was just riding along on my way back from a 2-day ride up in the Atherton Tablelands, and I'll fast forward a little bit, but I saw a vehicle going to turn right in front of me. It was an uncontrolled intersection. It was in a right turn lane. I was just going to go straight through. I saw him. I thought, I'll keep an eye on him. And then it got to the point where I didn't think he had any time to turn. So I thought, it's too late. And he didn't. But then for some reason, he went, and I hit him at 80 k's an hour, and it was a van, so I hit the side of it. So I was pretty much stopped, pretty much dead in my tracks at 80. And that's when my next challenge was handed straight to me there, mate. So I was very fortunate that at that particular point, I did have someone who's unidentified to me that was right there passing by right at that particular point. They came to me and started holding me and nurturing me because my whole face was fractured. I had skull fractures, my whole face was fractured, numerous fractures through my arms and my ribs, and ultimately my spine, which paralysed me. So the blood was quite significant that I was losing through my facial fractures, and he was making sure I wasn't going to choke. I couldn't talk properly because I damaged one of my vocal cords. That's why I've got this sexy husky voice, mate. And I couldn't move my legs. So he was just being a support person. There was an ambulance going the other way with 2 ambos in it, and they had a patient they were just transporting to hospital. So they quickly stopped and started rendering first aid. I was also lucky enough to have 2 other ambulance officers that were off duty. One was a very highly qualified guy who works with the rescue helicopter, and another fantastic ambulance person who was there. So I had 4 fantastic angels around me doing their best to keep me going, and allegedly I stayed conscious and calm, which was a shock to me through the whole incident. I don't remember much of it at all. It has been relayed to me since then by these guys, and one girl. One of the ambulance officers was a female, and they were able to get me to the hospital, and the Cairns hospital couldn't do much with me. My jaw was split right through the centre, through my teeth and on the sides, so my jaw was mobile in my skin, and so all they did was put a couple of plates in my front of my jaw to just hold that together. And they chucked me on the Royal Flying Doctors, which flew me directly to Brisbane. And I was taken straight into the spinal unit, and I had my spine operation. That led me to obviously a week in the spinal recovery area in the ICU. And that was a real shock to me. I knew I was in trouble. I was heavily drugged, but I knew I was in a fair amount of trouble. My head was extremely big, bigger than it usually is. And it was kind of like a basketball, to be honest, and it was really painful. I couldn't talk. I had tubes in me everywhere. I had them everywhere, and I had a fantastic nurse that looked after me. They weren't ever allowed to be more than a couple of metres away from your side, and these were young nurses. And I remember telling you this story before. It really impressed me and humbled me, no end, being an old bloke, to see these young professionals that often get a bad rap that they're lazy and they're not as good at their jobs as we might have been back in the day. But that is wrong, mate. These people that I was exposed to down there, most of them are young, and I was privileged to be surrounded by them, and they were caring for me with extreme amount of empathy. They knew what they were doing, and they were right there to help you as best they could with everything. I've had contact with all of those guys a lot, and I've made sure that I've expressed my opinions and feelings to those guys, because they deserve every accolade that they get. And I'm really proud that my daughter's a nurse, because now I kind of know that she may be in that position one day, and she might have to look after someone like me. So,
yeah.
But
and that's probably a good part of your story, that obviously that you're here to tell it, because I know as a mate things were fairly dicey there for a little while, and that we weren't quite sure that you would be sitting here today being able to tell your story. But that's probably a nice touch to the story, that that you have been able to go back and see the paramedics that helped you, and I've seen the newspaper clippings, and they've been able to go and see them and and really show that your gratitude towards them for what they did for you?
Yeah, it was really important for me to go back and give them an idea of what happened to me, because they had no idea. Once they dropped me in the hospital, they go about their jobs and their lives again. So I really wanted to show them how far I'd come since that time. They would have had no idea of the injuries that I had. They just knew that I was in a really bad way, and I wouldn't have made it off the road if they hadn't been there. That's for sure. So I was lucky enough to set up a meeting with them. It was covered by the media, and I presented them each individually with a medal with their names engraved on it, and I just had underneath their name the word thanks and my name underneath. That's all I could say. And they're impressive people. The whole profession is incredible, and I just can't thank those kind of people enough. And it's humbling to know that I was doing that kind of job as a policeman, and you do affect people's lives, and so do the paramedics and the fireys. I suppose trying to help you wrap this up a little bit quicker, there's a bit more I'd like to say about the accident. I did end up with a lot of bad injuries, and I was in a bad way, as you say. I did get through the hospital. I do hold the record for the fastest discharge of a paraplegic in the PA's history, because I self-discharged because it got to the point where it was really depressing, mate. I was depressed for 3 days straight, and I didn't think I could make it, to be honest. I just didn't see that my life was going to continue on, and I had a very good friend speaking to me on a daily basis and encouraging me, and when I hit those 3 days, I was crying, I was emotional, I was just a beaten man, and I didn't think that I would see the outside of the hospital walls ever again. And this went on for 3 days, and this person was able to give me a reality check on day 3, and that person ripped it into me, told me that that's not the person I am, and they challenged me to shut up, get on with it, and make something of it. And something clicked in my head, and I was able to get angry. And I went back into the hospital because I was outside talking on the phone. Although I couldn't talk, I had to whisper back then because my voice was so bad. I went back in, and I started telling all of the people in my team looking after me, because you have a big team that look after you particularly. I had 3 doctors, OTs, physios, nurses, and a social worker. And I went to them individually, told them I was leaving on the 29th of October, and which was 3 weeks away. And I said, so whatever they had to do to get me out of that hospital, they needed to start now, because they wanted me to be there for 6 to 9 months. I ended up discharging in 9 weeks. So I just couldn't stay there, mate. And I got angry, and I said, I'm going. And it was the best thing I ever did, buddy. I got out of there, I got back to Townsville, and I can tell you, I thought I was Superman and I was strong because I could do certain things in my wheelchair, and I could do certain things in the hospital, but getting out into the real world, having to deal with real world problems like jumping off gutters and opening doors that have lips on them and things like that by yourself, taught me that there's a long way for me to go. So, but I enjoyed the challenge in front of me, and I problem solved as I went along. And I've continued to do that the whole way through. One of the things that I was lucky enough to get involved with through the rehabilitation process was wheelchair basketball. I was exposed to that somewhere around 6 months after I got back to Townsville, and I went along reluctantly, actually, but I went along for a come and try day, and got in the wheelchair, and I fell in love, mate. I'd played basketball before, both as a young fella in Kyabram and in the army, and also in the civilian competition here. And so it wasn't new to me, but I felt like I wasn't a disabled person once I jumped in that chair and started playing. I didn't have very good skills, but I knew that I would get better. And So I just fell in love. And to kind of tell you how far I've come since that time, which was April 2016, so it's almost been a year. In 1 year, I've been able to play in the state titles in Brisbane with the Townsville team. I've been able to be part of a historic event, beating Rockhampton in the North Queensland Challenge, which they have been beaten for 10 years, and that was purely on the back of me and another few blokes that have joined the team. We trained with the other guys for nearly 6 days a week leading up to the competitions and the tournaments.
And the interesting part of that team, just to Phil, because obviously I know the story, but a lot of those guys that are in that team are ex-military or as well, obviously.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, and they're all amputees. So I'm the only guy that's paralysed in the team. We have other people that have got different disabilities, but the bigger guys, the stronger guys are all amputees, and we've been able to form a really close-knit team across the whole of the Townsville team. We've got females in there, which are fantastic. We've got some young kids as well, and it's a good mix. But we do have a formidable team, and we've got the title of North Queensland champions, and 4 of us applied and were successful to be selected in the Australian Invictus team, or their training squad, which is about to be announced shortly. So that was a really big step for me to have the chance to go down and trial at the AIS to see if I can make that side. I trialled for basketball, rugby and swimming, believe it or not. You might remember my fantastic swimming prowess back in the day with Felici and the boys.
Renowned in the town for your swimming prowess.
Absolutely, mate. But it's a far cry when you can't use your legs. So there's been a lot of work going on there, and it's still a work in progress. But in my category, I'm going pretty well, and we've been back to the AIS just last month, and we've got another camp which is going to kick off in July. That'll name the final team. It'll be cut to the final team for us to go to Canada in September, and I'll compete in those 3 sports. So to me, that's a really big thing. That shows that amount of effort that I've put in is paying off. I do a lot of work to be strong enough, fast enough, cardio, skillful enough. I work on it 5-6 days a week, and I love it. I can't get enough of it, and it occupies my life all the time. So I've got a great bunch of guys around me, and I have a great support network with friends, a fantastic family, and you've got all the professionals. I've got physiotherapists. I've got 3 of those guys on the run. I've got a massage lady. I've got doctors. I've got psychologists. I've got everybody on the Jeff team that help me keep going and turning up every day to get out of bed and be that person as good as I can be.
It's amazing that you say that, because one of the other interviews that I've done, and obviously this person hasn't had an accident or anything like that, but we were talking about the same thing about surrounding yourself with it. If you want to achieve something, you can't do it on your own, regardless of whether it's like in a situation like yourself or just any situation. You need to surround yourself with people that can help you achieve where you want to go to, and that's what you've done. It's just amazing and inspirational, and a credit to you, mate, to know how far you've come in that 18 months. It's just like, as a mate, it's just amazing. Like, you just can't even think how amazing it is. And so proud of you too, mate, because you're like, your footy prowess was okay, but now you're going to be representing it, or you've represented you like in a state situation, and you'll hopefully travel overseas and represent your country. Like, it's amazing stuff.
Yeah, mate, you're right. You can't do it by yourself, but you've got a lot of work to do on your own. So you've got to have that drive and that plan of where you want to get to. So you've got to look to the future, but you do need a support network, and that's the key. But you've got to pick the right people. Surround yourself with friends that are positive and upbeat and encourage and give you information so you can progress yourself is important. It's vital. So much so, I've got another project in the Winds. I was asked to go down to Caloundra to trial for the Australian rugby league team that's going to the World Cup in France in May. I was just shy of getting a ticket for that one, but what it showed me is that I think I'm up to the standard to play for my state, which will be coming up shortly. So I'll leave no stone unturned to get involved with that as well. So if you don't take steps to move forward, you're just going to sit in the same place and probably whinge about it and whine about it. And none of us got time to sit back, whinge and whine about stuff that doesn't work. Take control of it and make the necessary changes in your life so that you're not whining, you're actually smiling, and the people around you are fun to be with. And you've got the right people that bring you back down to earth when you think you're going really good. You need them because they're probably your best mates.
Yeah.
So, you and I have been mates for a long time, and we never cease to be able to pull the mickey out of each other.
Yeah.
So that's what mates do, and you've got to have that network to continue on, mate.
Yeah. So I suppose you've just answered the question that I was going to ask you, like as in if, and not necessarily in a situation like yours, but any situation, like what advice would you give someone to get up and get going? But you've probably answered that already just by surrounding yourself with the right people, having the right attitude, and probably just tying it back to your army, like that discipline and that you probably was instilled in you early on has probably stood you in fairly good stead now, even though probably back then as that 17-year-old kid at Kapuka, you probably never thought that discipline that was being instilled in you then was going to play such a major part probably in your life now.
Yeah, mate. One of the things that I'm really thankful for is my upbringing. I had a father that was a hard worker. He was a farmer, as you know. They work really hard. Mum was a nurse. She worked really hard. So I had really good role models coming up through the youth, and I was a farm kid, and I got to do all the cool things that farm kids do, and I think that grounds you really well to take on the world, whether you've got a degree in anything or you're a high school dropout like me, because I did year 9 twice at Kai High, just for your info. Yeah. And they told me to leave the school or I'd do it for the 3rd time in a row. So I didn't want to be that guy, you know what I mean? So I went to Shep South Tech.
Now they've closed that school down. They don't even let people go there now. So
I was probably half the reason lunatics going over there.
Everyone kept trying to blow it up or something like that. But anyway.
Exactly. But look, mate, I'm really appreciative too. I'm very humble to be alive to start with. I've got a wheelchair for transport these days, and I'm very independent. I drive myself everywhere. I can do everything that I need to do without any assistance. So I can go on a trip to Cairns by myself and book into a motel and go and do things, meet people, and be part of an event without anyone's assistance. So I've learned how to deal with all that, and I think being positive, and even if you're unsure, calculated risk is part of everyday's life, and I'm not going to be worried that if I drive 1,000 kilometres away that I'm not going to be able to survive. I'll work it out when I get there. So I enjoy the challenge. Like everybody, something's got to feed you, and for me, I like challenges, and I like to be as good as I can. I'm not getting any younger. I'm a bit like you, mate. I'm a bit older than you, but nonetheless, I've got to have a good crack while I can, mate.
That's it. And I think your whole story just encapsulates what I'm trying to get across with on the wire. And that's, that overcoming adversity and showing resilience and persistence and determination in driving you forward and overcoming the challenges that are put in front of you. Mate, you've done all that, and I'm very proud to call you mate. And that's honest. You inspire me with what you've achieved, and really glad that you've been able to sit here and have a chat with me, and really appreciate your time. And I'm sure I'll get you back on as September comes closer, and you can talk about your trip to Toronto.
Let's do a live crossover to Canada, mate, when I get there.
That's it, mate. That'd be fantastic.
Nice. Mate, thanks for having me on. I think you're wrapping me up. So thanks for having me on, mate. It's my pleasure to help you out with this venture. You are one of those guys that inspire me. You're off doing something that I can't do, and I probably wouldn't do. But nonetheless, I'm impressed with people like yourself. I've been watching quite a few of your other guests that have been on, and I take a lot out of every one of them that I've watched so far. And it's everyone's got a story. Some people have got not much to add. Some people have, but everyone's got a story. And I think if your life's not going the way that you want it to go, do something about it. That's probably the best thing I could probably advise people.
That's great.
No one else is going to do it. If it is to be, it is up to me, is an old catchphrase of mine. And on my desk here, I have, if you can dream it, you can do it. Can you see that?
Yeah, see that, mate. Yeah. And that's
the facts, mate.
And that's probably, as you probably go to bed every night thinking, oh, what can I achieve tomorrow? And that's what you do. You set your mind to it, and you set about trying to achieve it, which is absolutely fantastic. And once again, thanks for being on. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and it's good to chat with you. And as I said, we'll get you back on as the year progresses, and wish you well with what's coming up with the training camps and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, thanks for being on, mate, and look after yourself.
Thanks, Wazza. You're a champion, mate. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Take care.